I am Myia Blocker, owner and operator of Broadcap Farm, a local gourmet mushroom farm in Amherst, Ohio. Today, I will be showing you how to make lion's mane crab cakes. Now, the number one question that I get asked at the farmer's market, which is Cam's Corner Farmer's Market on Sundays, is how do I cook these? They're really funky looking, but you can cook it like any other mushroom. It does shine as a substitute for seafood. You can pull it apart into pieces that are identical to crab meat. And this is what we're gonna be using to make our crab cakes. And you'll be surprised by how easy this is. Now, once you've pulled apart your pound of lion's mane, you're going to chop up half an onion and half a bell pepper. I've used a red bell pepper. And 3 cloves of garlic minced. And I have here 1.5 teaspoons of salt with some freshly ground pepper and 3 tablespoons of olive oil from the olive seed. We've got our pan heating. And I'm gonna put in about half the olive oil and let that heat up. You wanna make sure you're gonna get a nice sear on your mushrooms. So you wanna let the oil heat for a little bit first. All right, so my pan is good and hot, along with my olive oil from the olive scene. Speaking of the olive scene, if you are recognizing this kitchen, I am cooking in Anne's kitchen from the olive scene. She does a lot of her cooking with Anne on Wednesdays, and it's a great kitchen for filming cooking videos. So here I am. We're gonna add our mushrooms. You hear that starting to saute. Give it a little bit of a stir to coat them in the olive oil. These are gonna cook down a lot. They release a lot of water. And I'm going to season them with just a pinch of my salt and pepper. Me too. So I started growing mushrooms in my basement in Columbus for fun. And my dad was looking for a way to use these greenhouses that my grandpa built in 1997 to grow orchids and tropical plants. And I got my first harvest of mushrooms and fell in love. And so my husband and I moved up here and I started a mushroom farm. It's been a wild ride since January of 2020, as you can imagine. But it's been pretty special being able to start a business in these greenhouses that I grew up running around in, picking flowers, and I wasn't supposed to. All right, so now our mushrooms are starting to get some color. And I'm just gonna let them sit, start to release some water. So, another question that I get asked is, how do I clean mushrooms? You can brush them with a damp paper towel. You're gonna want to trim the bottom of your mushroom. It may have a little bit of substrate still attached. That is for freshness. You just pull that apart, and that can get composted or thrown away. I don't grow on compost, which is a big concern for a lot of mushrooms and why you may want to wash them. But washing them with water can cause them to soak up a lot of that water, and then they can get soggy. They can get a little bit slimy, and it dilutes the flavor. So brush them off, trim them, and you're good to go. Starting to smell the mushrooms. They smell amazing. If anybody is here from the olive scene, I'm cooking with Acanolia olive oil. Quite delicious. All right, as you can see here, the mushrooms are starting to brown. They're starting to release some of their liquid. In about 30 seconds, I'm gonna add the onions and the rest of the olive oil and the peppers. I'm gonna let that saute. Season with a little bit of salt and pepper. Just gonna give them a couple more minutes to get a little bit more color. All right, half an onion, half a bell pepper. You want to dice these fairly small, because you think about a crab cake, they are bound together with breadcrumbs and egg, and they won't bind as well if you've got large pieces. All right, olive oil, a little bit more salt and pepper. Give that a stir. And let that cook. This is a fantastic recipe for anybody who is vegetarian, even for anybody who is vegan, because you could substitute the egg with an egg substitute you can find at the grocery store. And it doesn't have any crab in them, even though it looks like it. It's just a lion's mane. Let this keep cooking. And you want to cook this until the mushroom liquid has cooked out and the onions and peppers have started to soften. I'm going to let this go for about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and then add some garlic, which is 3 cloves of minced garlic, and let that cook until the garlic is fragrant. And then take it off the heat and let it cool. All right, so I cooked all of that down for about 2 or 3 more minutes, made a bit of a well in the center, and put in my garlic, let that fry up till it started to get just a tiny bit golden, and then stirred it all together and let it cook for another minute. This is about what it should look like. You can see the mushrooms are browned and the onions have started to get translucent. Yeah. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. I've let this cook a little bit longer, added my garlic. The garlic is starting to get fragrant, and as you can see, the lion's mane mushrooms are nice and brown, and the onions are starting to get translucent. At this point, we want to form our crab cakes, but we can't yet because this is too hot. If we put everything together, the egg will cook and it won't bind properly. So I'm gonna let this cool. If you're in a rush, you can put it on a sheet pan and put it in the refrigerator, and that'll cool it down pretty quickly. You just want it down to room temperature so it won't cook the egg. All right, now that our mushroom mixture is nice and cool, we're going to add 2 cups of breadcrumbs. You can use plain, Italian, panko, whatever you have. 2 beaten eggs, 1.5 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, the rest of our salt and pepper. Remember, we started with 1.5 teaspoons of salt and freshly ground black pepper, and we've been seasoning as we've been cooking, and the rest of it's gonna go in this mixture. And finally, the recipe calls for 1/4 cup of chopped parsley. I don't have any parsley, so I am using microgreens. They're sunflower microgreens from Caring Corral. All right, let's get a nice big bowl. Add our mushrooms. Breadcrumbs, egg, salt and pepper, paprika, microgreens or parsley, and soy sauce. I'm gonna give this a good mix to form our cakes. It's gonna look a little bit dry at first, but the breadcrumbs do soak up moisture and they will come together. All right, we'll let that sit and get our olive oil heating for frying. We're gonna do a shallow fry, so it is just enough oil to coat the bottom of your pan. If your mixture is still looking a little bit dry, you can add a little bit of olive oil, which I think I am going to do. All right. There we go. All right, I had to take a little pause there because my mixture still isn't quite binding together. So I'm gonna add one more beaten egg. Another way to do this would be to mix everything together and then add your breadcrumbs until everything starts to come together and clump, because that way you know it'll stick together into the cake. All right, now that looks right. All right, our oil is nice and hot. Let me pull this over. Take a small amount of mixture, just enough for the palm of your hand, and shape it into a cake. Just like this. You can hear it starting to sizzle. That's how you know that your oil is hot enough. If it doesn't sizzle, don't add any more until it is hot enough. All right, I'm just gonna keep forming these, and these are gonna fry for a couple minutes on each side until they're golden brown. And then you're going to pull them off and put them on either a cooling rack on top of a baking sheet or a paper towel to drain the oil. All right, so I've got the heat on pretty high. These are cooking for about a minute each side, but start checking them and make sure they're nice and golden brown. I'm giving them a flip. They smell amazing. Now you can serve this as a starter. You can serve it as a main dish, on pasta, on salad. And if you want to serve it like a traditional crab cake, you can make a little remoulade, which is fancy name for a dipping sauce, a little bit of yogurt and mayonnaise, paprika, salt, pepper, maybe a little minced garlic. It'll be delicious. And they have a lemon wedge to squeeze over the top. All right, so looking nice and fried. And this is what you want it to look like, nice and golden brown. All right, well, I've got the rest of these frying. I'm going to plate these up. Some tasty lion's mane crab cake with no crab. Enjoy.